Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. It opens with found footage of a giant extraterrestrial mothership parking above the South African city of Johannesburg. It didn't open for 3 months, so a team of scientists were sent to investigate and cut their way into the spacecraft expecting to see bright lights. They were instead greeted by over 1 million malnourished aliens, so the government relocated them to a refugee camp below the ship. It was only supposed to be temporary but was soon fenced off by the military and became the aliens' permanent residence. Over the next 20 years, District 9 turns into a massive slum and the locals develop a hatred for their species due to the burden on resources. They now derogatorily call them prawns due to their looks, while conspiracies develop around District 9, including the theory that the ship's command module detached mysteriously and disappeared. The weapons manufacturer multinational United's been put in charge of alien civil affairs as the government believes that the aliens are here to stay. Following civil unrest, the locals want the aliens removed from Joburg as some have acquired weaponry and begun resorting to crimes. MNU chooses to relocate the aliens to a new camp 200 kilometers outside of the city and appoint executive Piet Smit in charge, but conspiracy theorists just think it's all for the company to get their hands on the alien weaponry. Like any good leader, Smit palms the task off of evicting the tenants to a mild-mannered MNU employee named Wikus van der Meer. He's a bumbling office worker who's completely out of his league despite trying his hardest, but Smit assures us that the lateral promotion he's received has nothing to do with Wikus also being married to his daughter Tania. The MNU trainee Fundiswa is told to shadow Wikus during the relocations, while a sadistic PMC named Venter's hired as a merc to protect the employees from rowdy prawns. The found footage from a future perspective begins to turn against Wikus, with everyone suddenly talking about what a traitor he's become to humanity. We're left to wonder what caused this, as currently Wikus wouldn't hurt a fly, and even throws cat food instead of tear gas to distract the prawns and save their lives. The convoy of MNU eviction workers leave headquarters and make their way through District 9 in a slow, tedious process that goes about as well as it would with humans. One bra-wearing alien spray paints the number of humans he's killed out front of his shack as a warning, and gets aggressive until one of Venter's mercs shoots the shovel from his hand. The Nigerian gang leader Obesandjo's running scams inside District 9, including trading cat food for alien weaponry, and the drone-like prawns blindly handed over without any leadership to tell them otherwise, since the commanders are all suspected to have died in the first sickness. They've amassed the biggest cache of alien weapons over the past 20 years, including a mechanized battlesuit which they purchased for 100 cans, but don't possess the ability to use them as it's all bioengineered to the prawn DNA and can't be operated by a human. MNU go around the gang for obvious reasons and come across an illegal breeding operation contained in a shed with cows drip feeding the eggs nutrients. Wikus and the rest of humanity look at the prawns like an animal overpopulation and gives the order for the incineration of all 40 unborn aliens who pop away like popcorn. Meanwhile, in a District 9 garbage dump, an alien given the Earth name Christopher Johnson and his son CJ search for prawn technology. They return to Christopher's friend Paul's shack, where they've spent the last 20 years synthesizing enough of the fuel to enact their secret plan. Suddenly they're surrounded by MNU agents during the relocation program, so Christopher goes to find his son while Wikus serves Paul the eviction notice. He recognizes an alien gang sign painted on the wall, so they search the shack to discover the hidden laboratory. He finds the alien canister containing the rare fuel and accidentally sprays 20 years worth of progress in his own face. After he chokes a bit and cleans it off, they find the largest haul of weapons that Wikus has ever seen and learn that Paul's an arms dealer. Realizing he's done for, the prawn knocks back Wikus and tries to make a run for it, but is shot by a merc from Venter's chopper, who exits himself and takes a lot of pleasure in executing aliens and leaves poor Paul dead in the street. He then laughs at Wikus's shortcoming, who's shaken up at his first experience with a prawn and has his injured arm hidden beneath a bandage. Eventually they reach Christopher's house, where CJ throws Wikus's candied bribe right back at him. During the eviction, Wikus notices that Chris is smarter than any prawn he's ever dealt with and finds he's been hoarding computer components in his shack. All of a sudden Wikus falls ill, so the lucky prawn lives to fight another day as the MNU agents return to base for the day. On their way there, the team stop for a meal where Wikus begins leaking a black fluid from his nose, but he plays down his symptoms. The rest of the day he spends at the office with a splitting headache, until that evening when his fingernails start falling out and he needs to return home. It turns out Tania's organized a party to celebrate her husband's first day on the job, but it's not all hugs and kisses, as his father-in-law Smit assures Wikus that if the stress of his promotion's too much for him, he'll find someone better for the task. He remains conscious for as long as he can, before Wikus collapses and is taken to the hospital to discover what's wrong. A doctor removes his bandage to reveal that his left hand's now turned into a claw, as the exposure to the fuel has begun mutating Wikus into a prawn. Without letting his wife see him again, MNU bags Wikus up and transfer him to one of their labs at headquarters for their gruesome experiments. They discover the alien hand grants him the ability to operate prawn weaponry, but after further tests learn that the prawn DNA is completely integrated with his own, allowing him to fire from both. Before Wikus fully transforms into a prawn, Smit orders for him to be harvested so they can learn how to replicate the bio-connection with the weapons. He comforts his daughter who wants to see her husband, but Smit claims he's highly infectious. He tells her it's caused by a cut on his arm because Wikus was never a very strong person, while simultaneously we're shown otherwise as he overpowers the lab personnel and uses one as a hostage to escape. When Smit hears the news, he orders Venter to hunt him down, and Wikus becomes the most sought-after fugitive in the country. A smear campaign claims that Wikus has contracted a contagious disease from shagging aliens, and he's either chased away or treated like the plague by anyone who comes in contact. The reports from the future continue to narrate that Wikus had nowhere else to turn, so he took refuge in District 9 away from prying human eyes. He develops a taste for cat food that he trades all of his possessions for, and even hears from Tania. But she's been turned by her father and believes Wikus has become obsessed with the prawns. Shortly after cutting off a finger and regretting it, Wikus retreats from approaching MNU mercs into the nearest shack, which happens to be Christopher's. This time though, the computer parts are hooked up to the mothership's command module dropship concealed beneath it. Despite Chris telling him not to, CJ likes the human, so he explains that the confiscated fuel's crucial to their plan of reactivating the dropship and returning to their home world. Wikus still mocks the prawn's intelligence until Christopher mentions that the mothership can cure his physical transformation. He now wants to help them retrieve the canister from headquarters, as they all require it to return home. First, Wikus attempts to acquire weapons for the heist from the Nigerians, but they've heard about his wild antics with the prawns and take him as a prisoner to their warlord. Obesandjo has recently been eating the prawn meat and wants to eat Wikus, believing that it will give him the ability to use alien weapons. When they're about to kill him, Wikus takes up a prawn rifle and uses it on the surrounding gang members, causing the rest to drop their weapons. He escapes with a collection of guns and grenades, while the warlord says that he'll be coming for the arm. Wikus and Christopher then attack the MNU headquarters and use the advanced weaponry to force their way to the lab. Wikus is made to kill his first human when he defends himself, and the pair retrieve what remains of the fuel. However, upon seeing the prawn experiments, Christopher freezes up until Venter and his mercenaries arrive. The pair kill a few mercs on the way out, then blow a hole through the side of the building and escape in an MNU truck. They fly back to Christopher's shack where CJ's waiting, and the mercenaries follow them in hot pursuit. Once inside, Chris reveals that there's barely enough fuel left for Wikus to fix his mutation or the alien to return home, not both. So despite the prawn promising to return with more fuel in 3 years, Wikus doesn't want to wait that long and knocks Christopher unconscious before boarding the drop pod. Chris wakes up only to be captured by Venter and tortured, while CJ worries about his father and hears from below. They first need to fly to the mothership and use the med bay on board, while Venter's execution of Christopher's interrupted and they're forced outside of the shack. As the pod ascends, the merc calls in support to shoot down the shuttle, and they decide to take Chris alive to question him about the ship. Luckily, the crash makes the local news, and Obesandjo sends his small army to ambush the MNU convoy before they leave District 9. They kill some of the agents and retrieve Wikus for their leader Obi, who even brags that he told him he would get his prawn arm. As the Nigerian butchers prepare to chop Wikus up, the MNU are at war with his forces outside, as they want the valuable chimera as much as anyone. They don't make it to him in time, but luckily CJ's still on board the dropship and remotely activates the mech via the mothership, shattering every window in the city. He uses the suit to catch the gang's fired bullets suspended in midair, then flings them back, eliminating the vanguard. He then kills the leader himself with a high-powered taser to the head and opens to allow Wikus to enter. Still terrified of Venter, Wikus abandons Chris and flees to the drop pod in hopes of boarding the mothership, which CJ remotely controls to hover in their direction for the first bit of movement it's done in 2 decades. When he hears over the radio that the mercenaries find Christopher too stubborn and are going to execute him, Wikus finally decides to rescue him and vaporizes a few mercs while forcing Venter back. Using the suit as a personal escort, the pair make a run for the dropship while coming under heavy fire from all sides. The mech takes severe damage from a 50 cal sniper, so Wikus volunteers to remain behind and buy Chris enough time to escape. He promises to return with more fuel in a couple years, then makes a dash across no man's land while Wikus tests out the alien tech on a pig. When he's on board, Chris activates the tractor beam on the mothership and the damaged pod begins to rise once again, while Wikus defends them from Venter's final attempt to bring down the prawns by catching his rocket out of midair. The mech suit's finally destroyed when a merc crashes into the side of it and Wikus collapses out with nothing left in him to fight back. Venter approaches the defeated office bloke, who's now more prawn DNA than human at this point, just 72 hours after Wikus was first infected. Because of this, and the fact that he's a general terror to their species, the Slum aliens surround Venter and begin to rip him to pieces while leaving Wikus unharmed. Christopher and CJ make it on board the mothership and begin to leave Earth, while everyone comes outside to witness the monumental event. Since no one ever actually talked to Wikus again, humanity's left to speculate whether Chris will return to rescue the remaining prawns or to declare war on Earth. It's revealed that Fundiswa is incarcerated for exposing MNU's dirty experiments on the prawns and believes that Wikus is innocent of all crimes. The aliens are all successfully transferred 200 miles outside of the city to District 10, and rumors spread that Wikus was captured by the government and harvested. The final scenes show an old recording of Wikus from his final day at MNU talking about how much he loves his wife. We know that he makes personalized gifts by the crappy papier-mâché bowl that Tania sat on earlier in the film, but this time she reveals a metal flower that was left on her doorstep. It gives her hope that her husband's still alive, as we're shown a fully transformed Wikus crafting it while waiting for Chris to return. And the movie ends.